Using a 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Let's go ahead and take your wheel, remove it, set it aside. Using a 15mm deep socket and a 14mm wrench on the back side of our sway bar inlet, we want to go ahead and remove this nut off of our strut. We want our strut to knuckle. We have 2 bolts here. We're going to use a 21mm socket on the nut side, and if the bolt starts to spin, we're going to use an 18mm to hold that. Let's go ahead and remove those nuts. We have both of those removed. So our bolts themselves are really tight in our knuckle itself, and I can't get too much of a hammer on the other side of the bolt to smack that out. So we're just going to use our air chisel, and we're just going to get between the knuckle and the head of the bolt, and as it operates, I'm going to work it out in a way to get that bolt loose. Use a punch on the other side of the bolt and tap that and see if we can work that bolt out the rest of the way. Get one bolt out. So on the inside of the trunk, on the driver's side, I'm going to go ahead and peel back our carpet unit right here, or a trunk liner. This is going to give us access to the 3 studs on the top of our strut. Now there's a rubber boot on the top right here. You can go ahead and pinch that and pop that off. Now that we have our rubber boot removed from the top of the strut, we're going to go ahead and switch over to our 15mm gear wrench. We want to go ahead and remove the 3 nuts on the top of the strut here. Now this last nut here on this bolt or stud is the only one holding the strut in place. So when you do remove this here, there's a possibility that the strut can fall out from the vehicle. You can either strap that strut in, use a bungee cord or something, or just have someone outside to catch that. Or it might actually just stay stuck in the knuckle and you'll have to force that out once you get out there. All right, our third nut has been removed. Our strut is hanging in place here, so it might be stuck in our knuckle underneath. So let's go back out there and remove it from there. With the upper portion of the strut unbolted and our sway bar link is unbolted, now we're going to go ahead and use a pry bar between our knuckle and our strut. And we want to go ahead and separate these two. So now I want to go ahead and feed our strut back up and into place. Put the bottom in first, feed the top up. Roll this up into place. We're going to go ahead and install one bolt in our strut. Now that we have the strut in place, we're going to go ahead and take one of our strut bolts and put it through the lower bolt and the knuckle and the strut. That should hold it in place. What this allows us to do is have out and inward adjustability to get our strut lined up and into the body. We want to get our studs to fit into the body, and then we'll get back into that trunk and get those nuts started. I'm going to go ahead and jack up the strut to get those studs all the way up and inside. The jack is going to work as your personal assistant here. And let's go ahead and get those nuts installed inside the trunk. Now at this point here, we're able to jack up our strut just a little bit. We got the studs poking through because they're lined up. Now I want to go ahead and install our rubber boot, and it does have little tabs on it here. So we want to go ahead and feed that in, and that'll go around the top of the strut and pop down into place. Once that boot is in there, now we'll go ahead and jack the strut the rest of the way and install the nuts. Let's go ahead and get these nuts installed. Let's go ahead and get these snug down. Now once we get these all tightened down into place, we're going to go ahead and torque down these nuts. Let's go ahead and torque down these nuts to 33 foot-pounds. Do this for all three. Once you have the nuts torqued down, you can go ahead and put your trunk liner back into place. Once the three nuts are torqued down inside the trunk and everything is assembled there, we can go ahead and lower our jack on our knuckle here. We'll go ahead and roll that away. We're going to go ahead and install our upper bolt on our strut to knuckle. The hole doesn't want to line up, and the knuckle is giving us a little bit of a hard time, so we're going to put a small pry bar in the back hole and into the knuckle. Push this up, and we're going to use that pry bar to manipulate that knuckle. Get that hole to line up. Get that in a few threads. And we're going to go ahead and give that a few bonks. Go ahead and get this lined up. Once those bolts are in, at least the majority of the way, we can go ahead and put our nuts on here. Get both of those started, thread them down as far as you can by hand. Let's go ahead and tighten those down. So we switched over to a ratchet for clearance purposes for the bottom bolt. Now let's go ahead and torque these nuts down to 89 foot-pounds. Repeat for both bolts. Feed the stud in to the strut through the back. And torque down to 37 foot-pounds. Go ahead and install our wheel. Once we have all these started, we're going to go ahead and snug those down. Let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Now that we have our wheels installed, this is something you want to go ahead and bring the vehicle down and get your alignment performed.